Today we are going to make an add-on collar and cuffs that will turn any black dress or top into the iconic Wednesday Addams costume. We'll do this by adjusting a commercial button-down shirt pattern. I'll be using this Berta style 7136 pattern, but only the collar and cuff pieces. When you select your pattern, make sure it has a two-piece collar. This means that one piece is the collar and one piece is the stand. The collar is attached to the stand and folds over it. Make sure you select your correct size. It is important that the top you are attaching the collar and cuffs to has long sleeves and a small round neck. Find the collar and cuff pieces in your pattern and cut them out. You can dry iron your pattern pieces to remove creases. Fold the garment as shown so that you can measure from the front neck to the back neck. Be careful not to stretch the neck when you measure. Apply the same measurement to the stand. This measurement determines your size. In the next steps, we'll ensure that we select the matching size for the collar and cuffs. Trace the collar piece onto paper. I'll be using pattern paper for my tracing. To get the Wednesday look, I am extending the collar points 1 3/8 inches in my tracing. On the collar pattern, select the correct size. Stop your tracing at the corresponding dotted line. Finish tracing and cut out your new pattern. Select the correct size on your cuffs. This pattern is for a regular shirt cuff. However, if you want to be fancier, you can cut two pieces of the same pattern to make French cuffs. Now it's time to fuse the fabric. Before you iron and fuse, give your fabrics a good shake and make sure they are free of any dark lint or threads, as these will show. Line up the grain of both fabrics and iron with steady pressure in rows. If you are working with medium weight shirting like I am, you'll want a light to medium weight white interfacing. Generally, I like the weave of my fabric to be compatible with the weave of my interfacing. And here, for example, I am using woven non-stretch shirting with non-stretch interfacing. Now that you have your fabric fused, it's time to lay it out. Fold your fabric along the straight grain. Place the collar and stand pieces on the fold. Pin and cut 2 copies of each piece. For French cuffs, you'll need 4 copies of the cuff. On your collar and stand pieces, it's important to cut tiny notches on the center folds. Cut similar notches on the cuff fold line. Pin the face side of the pointy collar pieces together. Sew the collar outer edge only. Make sure your stitches are not too big. I'm using stitch size 2. Also, stay stitch the bottom edge of both collar stands. A stay stitch is just a stitch that helps the fabric retain its shape. For your cuffs, take 2 pieces and stay stitch the bottom edge. Be sure your stay stitch is right next to the seam line, but close to the raw edge. Now we'll press. press everything flat. To keep the collar points sharp, fold and press the seam allowance. Do this before you turn the collar right side out. Trim the outer collar seam allowances at 1/4 inch. Then turn the collar right side out, making sure the collar tips are pointy. Let's also press up the bottom edge of the collar stand. Stay stitch the bottom edges of the collar together. Sew one of the collar stand pieces to the collar. Attach the other collar stand such that the collar is sandwiched between the stand pieces. When attaching the second stand piece, stitch is shown here. When stitching, leave the middle section of the stand open. Make sure the tips of the collar are completely clear of your stitching. Press the bottom edge of the stand flush. Trim the seam allowances to 1/4 inch. Clip around the curves as seen here. I'm cutting in zigzags in little wedges so that the seam allowance will lay flat along the curve. Press. Then turn right side out and press again. Top stitch the edge shut. Now let's return to the cuffs. Fold the cuff in half with the inside out. Stitch both ends of the cuffs as shown on screen. Press the seam allowances of all 4 corners of each cuff. Flip inside out and press both sides of the bottom edge flush. Top stitch the entire open edge closed. Now we're ready for buttonholes. Flip your collar and cuffs right side out and mark buttonholes. I'm using 3/8 inch buttons. Here I'm marking buttonholes on the cuff, centered, 1/2 inch from the edge. The buttonhole is about 1/4 inch bigger than the button. For the stand, mark the buttonhole on the right-hand side, beginning 1/4 inch from the edge. Now sew your buttonholes on the outside face of the cuffs. Be sure to sew a left and a right pair. Cut the buttonholes. Mark the button placement. Sew and cut the buttonhole on the stand and mark the location for the button. Sew your buttons to finish and give everything a final press. Tack the back of the stand to the back of the garment. For the rest of the neck, I recommend double stick taping or more tacks after you put the garment on. This way you can be sure that there's enough room for your head to go through the collar opening. For the cuff, start with one tack, leaving room for your hand to go through. You can add double stick tape or more tacks if you need it after your hand is through. I hope you enjoyed this costume project. I'll see you in the next video.